Greetings, A&P Warriors. I'm going to show you some movements of joints. We'll do some shoulder, we'll do some at the elbow, and some of the hand. So let's start with the shoulder. So first, we're going to look at abduction and adduction. Abduction, adduction means to move the arm away from the body at the shoulder joint, arm away. And then adduction means to move your arm back toward the core of the body. So you can think of that as if you abduct something, you take it away. If you adduct, you're adding to the core of the body. Next, we have flexion and extension. So flexion would be this way. Extension would be to move the shoulder, move the arm back at the shoulder and increase that joint line. So extension this way, and then flexion decreases that angle of the joint. So I've gone here from, say, 180 degrees to 90 degrees, and that's flexion. And then we have circumduction. So circumduction literally means to take your arm and make a circle at the shoulder joint. This is different than rotation, which is strictly a pivoting motion, right? So I'm not making a circle, I'm just making a pivot or rotating for rotation. Sorry about the dog. Internal and external rotation would mean I'm taking my hands, or my lower arm rather, and internally rotating at the shoulder or externally rotating at the shoulder. Elevation means to lift the shoulders at the shoulder joint, lift them superiorly. Depression means to move the shoulder joints inferiorly. Just like you elevate like a mountain, you depress or move something down. And then protraction and retraction we can see best from the side. To protract means to move the shoulder joints anteriorly. To retract means to move the shoulder joint posteriorly. Like slouching would involve protraction. Standing up straight involves retraction. So now let's look at a couple of elbow joint motions. So here is my elbow joint. So if I take my elbow joint and I decrease the angle, so I've got 180 degrees this way. If I decrease the angle of my elbow joint, I'm in flexion. If I increase the angle, say I'm going from about 45 degrees, 45 here, to 180 degrees, that's extension. So flexion decreases the angle of the joint, extension increases the angle of the joint. Now, supination and pronation refer to moving the forearm at the elbow joint, and it involves some rotation of the radius and the ulna, and then a little bit of movement of the actual humerus ulna joint. So my arm's in supination. So pronation means to turn the forearm at the elbow joint towards the posterior. So I would be in the opposite of what we want for anatomical anatomical position. To supinate means to then turn my forearm, my antebrachial region, toward the anterior side of the body. So I've put it back into anatomical position. So pronation, turning my forearm to the posterior. Supination, turning my forearm to the anterior at the elbow joint. So next we'll look at a few movements in the hand. Hands have lots and lots of different movements, and sometimes we're actually combining multiple movements as in opposition. So the first one is flexion and extension at the metacarpophalangeal joint. So that's here at your big knuckles. And that's kind of like what babies do when they wave, when they first learn to wave. So flexion decreases the angle of the joint. Extension increases the angle of the joint. just like we did at the elbow, flexion, extension, and just like we did at the shoulders, flexion, extension. Same principle, different joints. And then we have opposition, which is a very unique primate feature. It's what allows us to grasp things like coffee cups or soda cans or pens. So opposition involves multiple movements. It involves some flexion and extension at the metacarpophalangeal joints. It involves adduction and abduction of the thumb. So opposition is the ability to touch all of your fingertips with the thumb. So it's a combination of movements. So opposition again is, and with your other hand. And lastly, abduction and adduction of the fingers. So I'm going with finger number 5, digit 5, just to make this easier to conceptualize. So again, abduction and adduction refer to moving the limb or moving at the joint, either away from the core of the body or towards the core of this particular joint, or hand rather. So if I move my pinky finger, digit 5, away, that's abduction. When I move it back toward the other fingers, that's adduction. So abduction, adduction. Abduct, moving away, adduct, moving toward. Hope you enjoyed.